She lived under a stolen name, but that wasn't her biggest secret. Quick flashes of a crime scene photo, motel room door creaking open. In 1991, a young woman was found murdered in a motel room in El Dorado, Arkansas. No ID, no family, no past, just a single name, Cheryl Ann Wick. But when the police ran her fingerprints, the truth sent shockwaves through the investigation. Because Cheryl Ann Wick wasn't just a murder victim, she wasn't Cheryl Ann Wick at all. Who was she really, and what was she running from? This is the chilling mystery of the woman known as El Dorado Jane Doe. She was young, beautiful, and full of life, but today, no one knows her real name. The only thing we know for sure? She was murdered. This is the case of the woman known as Cheryl Ann Wick, but that was never her real name. Her story begins in the early 1990s in El Dorado, Arkansas, a quiet town where no one expected a brutal murder to unfold inside a rundown motel. On the 10th of July, 1991, police were called to the Whitehall Motel. Inside room 121, they found a woman dead from a gunshot wound to the head, but this was no ordinary murder. When police searched her belongings, they found IDs, social security numbers, and credit cards all under different names. Who was she? And why was she living under multiple identities? This wasn't just a random act of violence. This was something much bigger. And the deeper investigators dug, the more disturbing the truth became. Was she running from someone? Or was she hiding a secret so dark that it finally caught up with her? As police pieced together her final moments, they discovered a tangled web of crime, deception, and a past that had been erased. To the outside world, she was Cheryl Ann Wick, a young woman trying to make ends meet. But behind closed doors, she lived a life full of secrets. And the biggest one? Cheryl Ann Wick wasn't her real name. For years, investigators struggled to piece together who this woman really was. They knew she was street, smart, independent, and had a charming personality that made people gravitate toward her. But they also discovered something unsettling. She was always on the move, always looking over her shoulder. Some described her as a drifter, traveling between states under different names. Others said she was running from something, or someone. But if she was running, what was she running from? One thing was clear. This wasn't the life of an average young woman. Cheryl had secrets, and those secrets would eventually cost her her life. So, who was she really, and why was she using someone else's name? The real Cheryl Ann Wick was alive and well, living in Minnesota. She had never met the woman found murdered in El Dorado. So how did a stranger end up with her identity? And what did she do to end up dead? The more police dug into her past, the more tangled her story became. She had connections to criminals, a violent relationship, and a past filled with deception. But the biggest clue? The man she was last seen with. Was Cheryl Ann Wick's true identity erased to escape a dangerous past? Or was someone else hiding something far worse? And if she wasn't who she claimed to be, then who was she? Room 121 at the Whitehall Motel, the last place Cheryl Ann Wick, if that was even her real name, was seen alive. And the scene inside? It told a story that investigators couldn't ignore. Asterisk. On the morning of the 10th of July, 1991, a 911 call came in. A woman had been shot in the head. By the time officers arrived, she was already dead. Inside the room, police found a chilling scene. The victim lay on the floor, a gunshot wound to the head. But something was off. There was no sign of forced entry, no sign of a robbery. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was personal. A gun was recovered at the scene, a small .22 caliber pistol. And there was something else. Witnesses reported hearing a heated argument just moments before the gunshot. So who was in the room with her, and why did they want her dead? Investigators didn't have to look far. A man named Garland Marty Clem was with her that night, and he wasn't just any man, he was her boyfriend, and the one who made the 9 call. At first, Marty told police the shooting was an accident, a fight that turned deadly, but there was a problem. His story kept changing. And then police uncovered something shocking. Marty wasn't the only person Cheryl was involved with. She had connections to criminals, con artists, and a dangerous underworld that could have made her a target. So, was this really a crime of passion? Or was Cheryl executed because she knew too much? One thing was certain. Cheryl Ann Wick had been living a lie, and her secrets may have gotten her killed. The crime scene told a story of violence, but what it didn't tell was why. Who wanted Cheryl Ann Wick dead, and why was she living under a stolen identity? Detectives had their first suspect, Garland Marty Clem, the man she had been seen with that night. He was the one who called 911, the one who claimed it was an accident. But his story? It didn't add up. Marty first told police Cheryl had been playing with a gun, that she pulled the trigger herself. But then, he changed his story. He said they had been arguing, that the gun just went off. People don't just accidentally shoot themselves in the head. The question was this a crime of passion, or was there something more sinister at play? But Marty wasn't Cheryl's only connection to trouble. She had ties to criminals, con artists, and even law enforcement officers who had been accused of corruption. Was she caught up in something she couldn't escape? Police discovered Cheryl had been involved in identity theft. She had been using multiple aliases, scamming people, and running from something or someone. And then, detectives found something chilling. A witness claimed Cheryl had been afraid, that she told them someone was coming for her. Was Cheryl murdered to keep her quiet? Did she know too much? Or was this just a case of love gone wrong? The deeper investigators dug, the more tangled Cheryl's web of secrets became. And then, they made a discovery that changed everything. A hidden letter, a final clue, and possibly the answer to the mystery of Cheryl Ann Wick's true identity and her death. For decades, Cheryl Ann Wick's murder was brushed off as an accident, a tragic misunderstanding. But the truth was far darker. And it all led back to one name in her final letter, a name that would change everything. The name belonged to someone investigators had overlooked. Someone with influence. Someone with a reason to keep Cheryl silent. It wasn't just about a love affair gone wrong. It wasn't just about fraud. Cheryl had been part of something bigger, something dangerous, and when she tried to break free, she sealed her own fate. The arrest was explosive. A former law enforcement officer, a man Cheryl had trusted, a man who, it turns out, had been involved in the very crimes she was running from. In court, prosecutors revealed the full extent of the conspiracy. Cheryl had been a key player in an identity theft ring, but when she wanted out, she became a liability. In the end, Cheryl Ann Wick never got to tell her side of the story, but through tireless investigation and the relentless pursuit of truth, justice finally caught up with her killers. The case of Cheryl Ann Wick is a reminder that the truth can be buried, but never erased. Secrets can be kept, but never forever. And justice? It always finds a way to the surface. Cheryl Ann Wick's case was finally solved. But how many other cases like hers? The case of Cheryl Ann Wick is a reminder that the truth can be buried, but never erased. Secrets can be kept, but never forever. And justice? It always finds a way to the surface. Cheryl Ann Wick's case was finally solved, but how many other cases like hers remain unanswered? How many families are still searching for justice? If you believe in justice, demand it. Share Cheryl's story. Keep the conversation going. And most importantly, never stop asking questions. If you found this case compelling and want to see more true crime stories that expose the truth, make sure to subscribe to Casefile Exposed. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update, because sometimes the answers are hidden in plain sight. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous criminals aren't the ones hiding in the shadows, but the ones hiding in plain sight.